A very good evening to you. Welcome back to the programme. The Prime Minister has warned of the biggest security crisis for decades after a renewed diplomatic drive to ease tensions over the build-up of Russian troops along the border with Ukraine. Earlier, I spoke to Vjosa Osmani, President of Kosovo, and I asked her what Kosovo's concerns were when it came to the build-up of Russian troops along Ukraine's border.
Obviously, just like the rest of the democratic world, we're deeply concerned about the events unfolding in Ukraine. I'd like to, first of all, express our support and solidarity with the people of Ukraine, as well as the full support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of this country. We strongly believe what's going on is a flagrant abuse of power and violation of international law and practices by Russia. In fact, both physically in terms of military buildup around the border, as well as digitally with the systematic spreading of disinformation. The truth is Ukraine is a free, independent country, and it should belong to the free and democratic people of Ukraine to make decisions on their future, whether they are related to Ukraine, whether they are related to security or other issues, which is why we believe that these events actually are not only about Ukraine, they're about the kind of world that we want to live in and the kind of democracies we want to build and the kind of fight we want to fight against autocracies. Because if we allow a neighbor who simply has a much bigger and stronger army that builds up around your border to decide about your future because it's aggressive, because it's autocratic, and if we allow appeasement towards these kind of policies and aggressions to be the policy, then we're creating spillover effect for the rest of the world where autocrats, through the use of force, whether physical or digital, can decide on the future of other sovereign people, which should not be the case, which is why the crisis, as I said, is much bigger than Ukraine. It's a direct and flagrant challenge to our democratic freedoms and to the values that we share and we try to promote.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been meeting the NATO Secretary General. He's been in Poland today. It's part of a big diplomatic drive. He was warning that this is the most dangerous moment, not just for Ukraine, but for the wider region, and the biggest security crisis for decades. Do you think he's right?
I do believe he's right. And while the world naturally is focused on events in Ukraine, Prime Minister Johnson rightly pointed out that we need to also acknowledge the way that Russia actively tries to destabilize other regions in the world, like the West Balkans, through its proxy Serbia. Serbia is absolutely fully supported and coordinated with their ally Russia. And we are concerned about their potential embodiment as a result of events in Ukraine, which is why the way how events will be going on in Ukraine really have a spillover effect in many other parts of the world. It is no coincidence that we are seeing challenges to stability in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Montenegro and Kosovo, all through the aggressive approach and destabilization efforts of Serbia, aided by Russia. So this is all a concerted effort by both of them, and it is clear that this has challenged our democratic way of life. So aside from being the genuine will of the people of Kosovo, because we have sacrificed way too much to give up on these hard-earned rights, it is also endangering, as I said, the democratic way of life that democratic countries have built for so many decades, which is why I think the response should be unified, which is why NATO should have a very active role. And we do hope that a solution will be found soon in order to stop the flagrant abuse of power by Russia that is trying to set their own set of rules towards other sovereign countries, but this would be an extremely dangerous precedent to allow.
What exactly is Russia doing to destabilize your country, Kosovo, and its neighbors?
Well, it's mostly by using Serbia as its proxy through their military cooperation, military exercises, the military donations, the economic cooperation, and simply by pushing forward the Russian way of thinking and acting, which is destabilize other countries in the region that are trying to join the European Union and NATO, trying to destroy everything Western values-based that has been built in this region with so much investment and sacrifice and work, and at the same time support Serbia's efforts in different ways. For example, we've had tension in the border with Kosovo, between Kosovo and Serbia back in September and October. And while Serbia was building its military around the border with Kosovo, of course, it put Russian MiGs and other kind of Russian and Chinese weapons. And the Russian ambassador to Serbia came to the border together with his military attaché to give his blessing to the soldiers who were waiting at the border, sort of encouraging him to push through the kind of ideas that now Russia is pushing through Ukraine. So, as I said, it's the Russian pattern. It's their way of thinking in terms of others, in terms of neighbors. It has nothing to do with good neighborly relations, respecting each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity. It has everything with autocratic and despotic methods of destabilizing others so that you can gain more territory. It's about territorial claims, after all. And Serbia does all this, aided and abetted by Russia at all times. And it shows at the same time that Russia, through these methods in the Western Balkans, is trying, as I said, to undo everything that the democratic world has achieved, everything that NATO and the European Union and countries like the UK and the US have achieved throughout the 2 decades.
Kosovo is not a member of NATO, but are you satisfied with the way NATO is responding to this crisis?
We're not a member of NATO yet. Nevertheless, we aim to join NATO, and we're working in that direction as the most pro-NATO country and people on earth. As you know, 23 years ago, we were liberated because of the sacrifice and the liberation war, but at the same time with the help of NATO back in June 1999. And we're working hard to make sure that this becomes a reality soon. How happy we are with the efforts. Obviously, we support the efforts of our international allies who are working together within NATO and then individually as well to make sure that through dialogue a solution can be found. And of course, as a country, a small country, however, a country that can have an effect on how these things evolve in terms of explaining what is going on in the region, in our region, it is important that we offer all of our support for these efforts that are made.
Liz Truss, the British Foreign Secretary, has been meeting her Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov. She came with a warning of tough sanctions if there is any invasion of Ukraine. Mr. Lavrov seemed pretty dismissive of what he heard. I mean, do you think that these warnings from the UK and its allies are going to make any difference to Russia's intentions?
Well, it's important that they are made. It's extremely important that they are made. As history shows, when democratic countries such as the United Kingdom, the United States, and the rest of the European Union and other European countries are clear on their messages, it can have an effect. It can definitely have an effect. However, knowing Russia and their aggressive behavior in the past, we can say that for sure right now. Nevertheless, that doesn't mean that the representatives of the United Kingdom should not continue making these messages clear. I think it is extremely important to make the messages clear and then, of course, take actions based on those messages that were given.
Do you think the UK does understand the difficulties facing a country like Kosovo? Is it giving your nation enough support?
I believe they do, because the United Kingdom has been one of our steadfast, fast supporters during the liberation, during independence, and then after independence in our state-building effort. It still remains one of our strongest allies, and it has showcased this recently with the appointment of a representative special envoy for the Western Balkans, Sir Stuart Peach, who I met today. And, of course, this support is continuing in all aspects. And we do hope that with the appointment of the special envoy for the Western Balkans, we'll be able to further enhance the partnership between Kosovo and the United States in many areas, but I would specifically mention two, that is defense and economy. There's still so much that we can do together, so many chapters to open and new horizons to see forward.
Just finally, Sergei Lavrov again said today that Russia has no intention of invading Ukraine. Do you believe those assurances?
Well, they already have. The illegal annexation of Crimea and other parts has happened through invasion. So they can say, obviously, that. And at the same time, I think their disinformation campaigns and the other information that we receive from NATO members shows that their intention is to invade further.
Well, that was Vjosa Osmani, President of Kosovo, speaking to me just a little earlier here on Times Radio.